leading up to my NDE, my personality was I was just deeply just sad, depressed person. It doesn't really there was nothing that I could there was no ideation inside of me that was going to change my perspective. I just seemed to be kind of stuck in this negative space and really disappointed by circumstances for Black people, really, impacted by that to the point where, like I said, just the depression, the anger, a lot of negative ideation. It just led to my sickness. I had digestive issues for years, then hypertension, and then the heart attack. And but February 1st, 2017, I felt the rip in my chest, and it was one of those super moons of the blue blood moon, and it just energy was high. I mean, I felt my body kind of in a high state. And like I knew it was something going on, but it affected my blood pressure too, and I could feel that as well. And I was just sitting with some friends, and it felt like a rip, but in my where I felt it. It was in my back and in my shoulder. I never at any point felt anything localized to my heart, so I never thought I was having any kind of heart issue. But I remember pausing and looking at my friend, and I was like holding my chest and like over in my shoulder area, and I said, "Dang, this back pain just shifted gears." And then I paused for a minute, and my eyes were like really wide because the pain was extreme. And I sat for a minute, and then I kind of like semi-integrated it in that moment. And then I just continued the conversation, but I was still kind of really impacted by the pain that I was feeling in my back and shoulder. Okay, then go to work the next day. 7 days pass. I'm leaving work, and I'm just telling people goodbye, and I feel this sting in my chest as I'm stepping off a curb, and the guy was saying, "I see you tomorrow, Mr. Williams." And I'm waving at him and saying, "I'll see you tomorrow," because there was nothing in my imagination that would make me think that wasn't going to happen. So I'm going to see you tomorrow. And so I get in my car after I feel that sting, and it's like now I don't like it's my heart is beating kind of weird. My breathing is starting to get infected, and so I pause a minute, and it kind of eases up, and I'm like, okay, I'm okay. And then it comes back, and so I drive home. I get home, I make a snack. I'm still kind of just feeling myself like, okay, is this? And then after the snack, I chill for a little while. I'm like, okay, no, this is not easing up at all. So I tell my son's mother I need to go to the emergency room, and so we went. And on the way, I could feel I was just losing my breath a lot on the way to the emergency room, and I had to take really deep breaths to kind of stay present. And so when I get there, I feel all of this. I feel like I'm about to pass out. I feel like I can't keep my breath. And the guy's trying to tell me to fill out paperwork and stuff. And that immediately I'm like, I can't fill out any paperwork. And I put my hands up and they shaking and stuff. And I'm like, I can't even, I can't do it. I need to be seen. I'm having a heart attack. And that's what I was telling him. And he still kind of was insistent. And I cussed him out really bad. I gave him the business, and then as I was cussing him out, I could see people from the left coming with a gurney, because he kind of got the point, and I think he, maybe he's told him to come out, but immediately once I got on the gurney, I was pretty much out. Like I remember rolling to the left, and the last thought that I had before I passed out was, "This is going to be some beautiful sleep," And because that's all of like the heart attack for me, it just felt like I was drowning, and I just was losing my breath. It didn't feel like pain. I didn't feel pain. So when I was passing out, it wasn't like, "Oh my God, this is hurting me." It was just, I took a deep breath and I just closed my eyes, and I said, "This is going to be some beautiful sleep." And it was very peaceful. Me leaving was very peaceful. And I'm somewhat think that how peacefully I died contributed to how peacefully my experience was. The whole transition into it. There was no trauma. There was no confusion at all. I literally, as they were pushing me, because I passed out before they pushed me into the area where they would be trying to resuscitate me. So once I get into that area, I'm not seeing with my eyes. I'm seeing black. I'm seeing blackness, and where everybody is at, I'm seeing dots of light, like pixels, kind of like the stars in the background. But it's energy, like I could feel it, and I could kind of hear conversation, but not really. Everything was like underwater initially, and then I was immediately kind of floating above myself, looking down at everything and at everybody, and I could see where everybody was positioned. Before there were dots, now there were people there. I could see them, and I could see a woman in the back of the room that she always. This is somebody that I now view. I have to know who she is, because I mean she was the energy that made me kind of stay anchored to this planet. So my thought is that she was my aunt, or just it could have been a hospital employee that wasn't involved with the resuscitation, but she was in the back and she was holding her face with both of her hands, and immediately I just wanted to tell her that I was okay and that she shouldn't feel bad about what was happening. And I felt horrible that she was sad, like she was really, really sad, and I did not want her to be sad that I was passing, because I was not sad, and everything I was feeling was so perfect and beautiful that I just wanted to tell her that. And it kind of bothered me that I wasn't able to convey that to her. But in that space, it really truly felt like I would be able to learn how to do that. And that's what I feel like that. Like I feel like I could have figured it out and would have been able to talk to her and tell her what was going on. So I was really focused on that. And I think that if I'd have been gone long enough, she would have some kind of interaction with her would have happened. I really believe that, because I just feel like it's a matter of knowing. I wasn't there long enough to figure it out, but I felt like I was learning while I was there. And but I looked at her. I wanted to talk to her. I watched them resuscitate me for a while. One of the doctors, or one of the people in the emergency room that was resuscitating me, was also affected by me dying, and I could feel and see that person stronger than everybody else. Along with the woman that was holding her face. Those two people seemed to be the most deeply, like they had compassion, like for me, and it made them louder. Their voice was louder. Their image was clearer than everybody else in the room, in the emergency room. But I watched that, and then I looked up at the ceiling, and immediately I was in space. There was no tunnel. There was no transition. It was just like I saw the ceiling, and then I was in space. And I initially, though, I was in a very, very black space that felt like, I've heard other people say it, and that's the best way to describe it. The black was kind of enveloping me, and it felt like velvet. Yeah. But for me, it was like the blackness it felt like love, and it was communicating. Some of the things I don't recall what the communication was, but I could hear and feel communication with this dark, dark blackness. And it didn't feel threatening at all. It felt like love, the same way that people describe the light. So when I came out of this blackness and I kind of looked down, that's what appeared to be the void. And I didn't recognize that transition until when I share this story over and over and over, it's almost like it's vivid. It's like a screen in front of me that it's playing, and, and I'm seeing it again. But I didn't recognize that transition from that blackness to above the blackness until I described it in another interview. But so I know that blackness that I was inside of appeared to be what I emerged from. And then when I was looking down, that was what people refer to as the void. And in that blackness was everything. When I looked at that blackness, it seemed like all possibilities that existed in this life were there. Questions were answered instantly, confusion, tension, anything that I had inside of myself that was like any kind of idea of absence or lack or confusion instantly was cleared up when I looked in the void. I felt like love. Everything around me felt like love. It was beautiful. Another part of that void, maybe because once I got into space outside of that blackness, I didn't have a personal history. I didn't have ego, but I was a reference point. Like I was a reference point, but it wasn't like the same as being David. It was just like I was. I feel like all that I was awareness or attention, something very fundamental, but not organized in the way that human identity is organized. because I didn't have any kind of historical data to refer to when I witnessed something. When I saw something, it was like, wow, like a child. It was like, wow, what is that? And then instantly, the distance between me and that thing would disappear, and I would know what it was. There would be no confusion after that at all. It was instantaneous clarity with everything, you know, and and that's how I moved through space, was like looking at different things and like, oh, what is that? Wow. And I would move to that and I would know what it is. But I sat and I watched the star forming region for the bulk of my time in space because it was beautiful. Red, pink, white gradation. It started at red and it gradiated down into pinkish and then white. I don't know if that's a word, but it would fade down into from red to pink to white, and then dark blue to light blue to white, and then it will be white in some areas as well. And it was just beautiful. And then I could see the stars faint inside of these clouds. And the thought inside of me is that, so this is where stars are born, you know. And I knew that, like I knew that this is where the stars were being born. And so when I came back and I started Googling everything, like I gotta Google this stuff. I Googled where are stars formed, and the pictures came exactly like the pictures that I was looking at, star forming regions. You know, um, I saw an asteroid that I didn't know. I didn't call it an asteroid in space. In space, I knew what it was, but I didn't have words. There were no words that I needed to describe. I just was comfortable with my understanding of things when I was there. So when I was trying to ground what the void was, I just described it to myself, and I like, it was a black space that was blacker than space itself. Like space was black and beautiful blackness, but the void was much blacker than space, and you could see it was almost like a patch in space that was darker than space itself. Yeah, and it seemed as though there were other of those spaces. You know, if I looked around, there seemed like there were other of those spaces, but where I could just see that, oh, that space is a little darker than the space around it, you know. And I think those were voids or black holes, or however we want to discuss them. But I just think that outside of the body, experiencing those things, it's magical, it's beautiful, it's clarity. It seemed to, and once I was in it, it seemed to erase my human experience almost. Like it seemed to, yeah. And then when I came out of it, I was a orb of light, and 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 I understood what was going on in a really powerful way. Like I was one with everything around me. It just felt perfect. It just felt perfect. It was a beautiful opportunity to be in that space, you know, and to feel that way, you know, because it made me understand love differently. Love is a force. It's not just this emotion. It's a force that can make you stand upright. It can make you. It allows you to see what other people deserve from you.